From years of anxiety to warrior and mentor, Bradley Robinson created the Anxiety Project to help you end your anxiety naturally. Let's mold the new you and let's end anxiety together.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Anxiety Project podcast. This one is number 40. I am your host, Brad Robinson, here with you today. And this one is another anxiety story of mine. And this story is one of the worst moments in my life. This story really was very traumatic and it really impacted my future anxiety. But this story is so powerful and one I had to reframe because of how traumatic it was. So at this point in my life where this story takes place, I was still working as a camera assistant. So I had a gig. I had a camera assisting gig for the day. So I couldn't sleep that night. And it wasn't fully because of the excitement / dread of the gig. Because, well, it wasn't dread. I was more like worried about, how I was going to perform. What if I don't perform well? And what if they think I'm not a good assistant? What if I can't get enough sleep tonight because of this health issue I was battling? So at this point in my life, I was ruminating over my bladder because I thought I had a bladder infection. I thought something was wrong with my privates. I was feeling pain in that area, and I was really ruminating over my illness, right? I was suffering from severe health anxiety. So I was ruminating over this illness. I was worried about my state of health. And on top of that, I was also worried about this camera gig the next day. What if I just mess up and they never call me back? So I was having trouble sleeping. I was suffering from severe health anxiety. And in the morning when I woke up, I was completely drained. I'm like, whoa, my God, I didn't get enough sleep. That was a rough night. What if this illness is still here? What if I'm dying because of it? And I was really sensitized to my body. I was really afraid. I was fearful over my health. And I didn't trust my body. I didn't trust myself. I was very chaotic in my mind. So in the morning, I was dragging myself out of bed, and then I dragged myself to the washroom, and I was going pee. So when I was going pee, my pee was dark yellow, but I was not looking at the yellow. I was actually perceiving my pee as being red. Now, this was very traumatic because I was very sensitized to the idea of, peeing red equals, you have an illness, a disease, and you're going to die. And I was really sensitized to that idea. And I was still, like I said before, I still had this belief within me that I have a bladder infection, that I have something serious going on with my privates. So I had that belief, right? So my pee was dark yellow, but I was staring down, and all of a sudden, for this moment, I saw red, and I automatically panicked. I freaked out, and I stepped back like I thought I was going to faint. I had shallow depth of field, and I held on to the counter, and I was like, oh my God, there's the proof. I am ill. I am dying. I can see it right there. Now, this is very interesting, okay? And this still blows my mind to this day. That we see what we want to see. We see what we want to see. My pee was yellow, dark yellow, but I was looking for the red. I was looking for the blood. I was looking for it. So I saw it. And to get to dig more deeper into this subject, I'm going to talk about me in this one. I was holding on to this traumatic event, this traumatic belief of, I have this bladder infection, I am ill, and I have a disease. I had these deep-rooted beliefs and traumatic events from my past. So everything was being filtered through these traumatic beliefs, okay? These events that happened to me in the past. And so I'm going to use a camera as an example because, I was a camera assistant and it relates to the story because I was working a gig at that time. A camera filter. You put that camera filter in front of the camera lens and it distorts the image. It makes the color look different. The image looks different. So imagine that piece of filter, which is like a square of glass, right? Imagine that square of glass as the traumatic event that's stored within my body. The traumatic event that I believe I have a bladder infection. So I'm looking into the outside world through that filter of, I'm unhealthy. I have a bladder infection. So I'm looking for anything in the outside world, or I'm perceiving everything in the outside world through that filter. And I saw my urine as red. I saw it as red. I was looking through that filter. I was looking through the outside world as a victim of a disease, right? As a health issue, right? So that's what was going on, and I sprung into severe panic. And someone who, like myself, who was suffering from health anxiety, I was sensitized to everything about health. A commercial would come on the TV and it would be about cancer, and I would be sensitized by, oh my God, I have that. Oh my gosh, yeah, I could get that so easily. I'm unhealthy. Or it could be a billboard or a sign about a doctor and, did you get this checked lately? And it's like, what? Oh my God, no, I didn't. Like, oh my God. So you're sensitized to everything about health. Like when you hear a conversation, and this happened to me a lot, where I hear a conversation between two people, and the man or woman's like, he's in the hospital, and I would like, oh my God, I would instantly engage my everything into that conversation. I'd be like, oh my God, what's going on with him? He's in the hospital, oh my God, this world is a dangerous place. What if I have something and I get that? And you know what I mean? So everything was being filtered through that filter, right? Everything, I was perceiving the outside world through that filter of, my health. Like, I'm unhealthy. I'm afraid of dying of a disease and things like that. So I freaked out. And then I got in contact with my mom, and I was going over what happened with her. She's like, go to work, you can sort this out after, and, go to the doctors and all that stuff. So I was making excuses not to go to work. I'm like, I can't go to work if I'm dying like this. This is crazy. I'm suffering from from an illness right now, and I'm supposed to go to work and do a good job and get there on time and all these things. So I drove to work, panicking. I'm in the car driving, panicking. Took me half an hour. So I show up in the parking lot. And then I call my mom again. I'm like, for reassurance. I'm like, like I'm scared. Like, this is serious. This never happened to me before. And I was talking to her and for reassurance. And after that phone call, I got to the job and I was just quiet. I wasn't sociable. I was just very internal over my fears and my health, and just trying to get through each minute so I can get back to my safe zone, my house where my family is. So I was struggling through that job, and I was going to the bathroom constantly. This is one thing I remember during that day. I was going to the bathroom like every 10, 15 minutes. And what I would do in the bathroom is I would go pee, and I would be checking in on my urine. As I'm peeing, I'm like looking, checking the color. Everything was fine. It looked clear. I was drinking lots of water, too much water. I was overhydrated, I believe. But I was checking in on my urine color, checking in if I was healthy, taking a breather in the washroom, and very eager to call my folks for reassurance. And I was always going to the bathroom. Probably I was going to the bathroom that day on that job, 6 or 7 times, something crazy. I was going all the time, every chance I got. And I was very internal, and not just internal, but I had poor posture. I couldn't keep up the conversations with my coworkers because I was just so defeated. I felt so defeated, emotionally drained, low self-confidence, low self-worth. And I thought I was unhealthy. I thought, what's the point? I have to deal with this illness, so I wasn't taking the job seriously. I wasn't at my best. I wasn't doing what I really needed to do. So, this day, it's sort of like being in a cave, okay? So you're in a cave and it's dark, and you have no sword or shield, and you don't really have a light, but you know there's monsters everywhere. There's bugs everywhere. There's chaos all around you. You're in this cave. There's chaos all around you, and you feel helpless. You feel scared. You feel overwhelmed, and you don't know what to do. That's how I felt going through this anxiety that I was facing. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. There was chaos everywhere, chaos all around me. I didn't have any tools, techniques. I didn't have any order in my life. I was fearful about all of these things, the state of my health, the fear of dying, the fear of being humiliated in front of my coworkers. And that was also a big one, was, the fear of being humiliated. I felt like when I was going to the bathroom a lot, when I felt like I was being quiet, when I felt like I was being awkward, I felt like I was humiliating myself. I was, I was like being an outcast, and that feeling is terrible. It's absolutely horrible. The feeling of, not fitting in, the feeling of, not being that awkward person and not part of the group. It's not a good feeling because, back in the day, when you're not part of the tribe and you're on your own, you can't really survive, can you? In the wild, you're going to get eaten, you're going to get sick, and no one's going to help you, and it's hard to defend yourself on your own. So when you're not fitting in, and when you feel like an outcast in this modern time, you feel alone, and it's that feeling of being an outcast where if you're an outcast, you in the wild you die. Back then when you're an outcast, you die because you can't fend for yourself. And it's like that. It's like that. If you're not part of a group, a tribe, if you're not social blah, I can't even speak. If you're not like in that group, then it equals death. Humiliation. That's why when people feel humiliated, it destroys them, right? It destroys them. So, and that's because it's like, I'm not part of the team. I'm not part of the group. I can't fend for myself without these people, right? So that's what I was feeling. Like I'm just crazy. I'm not part of society. I wish I was normal. And these were really deep and limiting thoughts, right? I was really struggling at this time. And another big part of the day was I was constantly calling home for reassurance. I remember leaving the building and picking up my phone and calling my family and being like, like what is going on with me? What is going on with my health? I'm looking for answers. Am I okay? Am I healthy? Do you think I'm going crazy? All of these thoughts, and I was saying that to them because I truly believe that I was unhealthy. I was not well. Very powerful day, very emotional, and as any anxiety sufferer experienced is when they go home. When I was going home at the end of the day, when I arrived back into my house, I felt relieved. I'm like, I'm home, my safe zone. And my anxiety went from like a 10 to a 5. And I felt, I'm home. Now I can just spend time with family and talk about my problems with them. And I felt way better. So in the end, it wasn't red. My urine wasn't red. It was actually yellow. And it's amazing how we can perceive the outside world through this traumatic event, through this belief that we store within our body. And we need a sword and shield when we go out into the world and when we go through anxiety recovery. We need that sword. We need that shield. And the sword and shield represents techniques. It represents techniques and strategies, right? You can't go out into the dragon's lair without a sword and shield. And you need to add order. I needed to add order in my life. I didn't have any structure. My weeks were not planned. My weeks were so chaotic. I didn't know what I was going to do for money. I didn't know what I was going to do about my health. I didn't have any structure. And humans, we need structure. We need routine. Humans need routine. And going through my anxiety recovery, having that morning routine and night routine, that's technique, that's strategies, right? the 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 mental movie, the morning mental movie, huge, where you imagine how you want the day to go, and you sit with yourself and you imagine how you want the day to turn out, and you go through that in your meditation practice. This was huge for me. That's a technique. That's the sword, you know? So this event, this day, was a result of many traumatic events in my past. I was guilty of things. I was shameful of many things. I lived a very chaotic lifestyle. I lived so chaotically. I was going to bed at different times each night, staying up late, eating a lot of junk foods, engaging in a lot of marijuana, and not only that, but it was just my mentality and my past traumas of things that just I've never dealt with yet. So I accumulated all of this anxiety and my anxiety disorder over all this chaos in my life. I brought it onto myself. It was my responsibility to get over my anxiety. So when I took that responsibility of, you know what, Brad, enough's enough. I reached my low point. Every day I think I'm going crazy. I can't even leave the house. I suffered through agoraphobia. I couldn't even leave the house because I was afraid of dying. I was afraid of the outside world. I was afraid of the chaos. So when you're consumed by all of this anxiety, when you're consumed by all this chaos, what you need to do is step back and start changing yourself. Stop pursuing that job, you always want, right? Stop pursuing all of these things that are so unnecessary, right? And step back a bit. Well, I mean, like, it's good to pursue your dreams, but I needed to step back away from everything and take care of myself. I needed to start with the little things. Before I could pursue my dream job and be the best I can be at my dream job, I was suffering through anxiety, I was like, you know what, that's irrelevant right now. What I need to do is step back, and I need to go tidy up my room a bit, because tidying up your room is great for two things. One, it gives you discipline. And two, the clutter is gone. So, your room is a reflection of you. If your room is cluttered and messy, that's a reflection of your mind. Your mind must be messy, must be chaotic. Your life must be chaotic. So I took care of that. I started getting rid of clothes. I started getting rid of pictures in my room. I started getting rid of books and all of these things, and everything lightened up in my room, and everything became more orderly. And just taking care of that alone made me more disciplined and made my mind clear up a bit. I felt good of having a clean room now. And so that snowballed into, I started to add morning routines and night routines. So I was adding chaos, I was adding order, and the chaos was more easy to manage because there was way too much chaos. I needed order. I needed way more order in my life. And so this day was so chaotic. The day where I was working that camera assisting job, I was going through hell. And I didn't know what to do. So I hope this podcast shines some light into your anxiety and into your life, because that's what I want to do. And that's why I talk about my past, is so that you can relate, you can understand what you're going through. And, this is something you can overcome. I overcame it naturally. I sought, I sought a coach, and I worked with a coach, and I was listening to role models of mine that struggled with anxiety as well. So learning, and you listening to this podcast, you're learning, you're absorbing this information into your unconscious mind. And now you're getting smarter. Now you're getting yourself knowledgeable. Now you're moving one step further. And this is so important when going through anxiety recovery. So thank you for listening to this podcast. And I really appreciate the comments and the ratings on iTunes. And I want to hear from you. If you want one-on-one coaching, I do offer that on my website at unpluganxiety.com. Thank you so much. And, I love you all very much. Do not let anxiety define who you are. I will see you on the next podcast episode. Bye-bye. For more podcast episodes, for more video content, and one-on-one coaching with me via Skype, visit www.unpluganxiety.com for everything you need to know about ending anxiety naturally. I love you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.